The first time I saw the video, my hands were still wet from washing their dinner dishes. My daughter-in-law stood in the kitchen doorway, laughing into her phone, while I folded linen napkins beside the stove. "Look at her," she whispered to the camera. "Our live-in maid is actually useful for something." Then she zoomed in on me, on my gray hair, my old sweater, my shaking hands, and in the background, my son laughed, not nervous laughter, not uncomfortable laughter, real laughter, the kind that cuts deeper because it comes from someone you once carried inside your own body. I didn't cry right away. I just stood there holding a dinner plate while my entire world quietly collapsed around me because the woman they called a maid owned the house they were standing in, and neither of them knew what was about to happen next. 3 years earlier, when my husband Walter died, the silence nearly killed me. 42 years of marriage disappeared in one hospital room at exactly 2:14 in the morning. 1 minute he was squeezing my hand. The next minute, machines were screaming. I remember sitting beside his empty hospital bed after the nurses left, staring at the wrinkle his body had left in the sheets. That wrinkle broke me more than death itself, because it proved he had really been there, and now he wasn't. After the funeral, my son Ethan started visiting more often. At first, it felt comforting. He brought groceries, buys little things around the house, checked on me every day. Then one evening he sat across from me at the kitchen table, rubbing his palms together nervously. "Mom," he said softly, "you shouldn't be alone anymore." I smiled sadly. "I've lived alone before." "No, I mean really alone." Then came the offer. He and his wife Claire wanted to move in temporarily. "Just until you feel better," Claire said with fake sweetness. I remember feeling grateful. That was my first mistake. The second mistake was believing family couldn't become strangers. The house Walter built sat on almost 4 acres outside Denver. Big wraparound porch, white shutters, cherry wood floors Walter installed himself. Every corner held memories. The hallway where Ethan took his first steps, the wall with pencil marks showing his height every birthday, the backyard tree where Walter built him a tire swing. I thought bringing them into that house would bring life back into it. Instead, it invited rot. At first, things felt normal. Claire cooked twice a week. Ethan helped with bills. We watched movies together some nights. But little things started changing. Claire began referring to the upstairs master bedroom as our room. She redecorated my kitchen without asking. One afternoon, I came home from grocery shopping and found my late husband's recliner sitting on the curb, the same chair Walter used every evening for 15 years. I nearly dropped my bags. "What is this?" I asked. Claire barely looked up from her phone. It smelled old. "It was my husband's chair." "Exactly," she said. Ethan stood there silent. That silence became his favorite language. Months passed, then came the comments. Small at first. "Can you fold laundry while you're downstairs? Can you sign for our packages? Can you watch the dog tonight?" Eventually it became, "Can you clean the kitchen? Can you make dinner? Can you iron Ethan's shirts?" One night Claire tossed a pile of clothes onto the couch beside me. "You're home all day anyway." I stared at her. I'm 71 years old. And then somehow I still apologized. That's what grief does. It makes you desperate to keep people close, even when they're destroying you. The video happened 6 months later. Claire had become obsessed with social media. She filmed everything: coffee, nails, shopping hauls, fake inspirational speeches, thousands of followers, thousands of strangers praising a woman who treated kindness like weakness. That evening, they hosted a dinner party. Claire ordered me around all afternoon. "Set the good plates." "No, not those glasses. Candles go in the center." I felt invisible in my own home. Then I heard her whispering and giggling behind me. I turned around just in time to hear the words. "Our live-in maid is good for something." Ethan laughed. I'll never forget that sound. It was identical to Walter's laugh. And somehow that made it worse. Claire uploaded the video that night. She thought I'd never see it. But the internet is cruel in funny ways. The next morning, my church friend Marianne called me. "Helen," she said carefully, "I think there's something you need to watch." She sent the link. 2 million views. Comments flooding in. Fire the old lady. She looks creepy. Imagine aging like that. Your maid needs a raise. I watched the clip 6 times, not because I wanted to, because my brain couldn't accept reality. At the end of the video, Claire turned the camera toward herself and laughed. Perks of free childcare and free housekeeping. Then she winked free. The house was mine. The utilities were mine. The property taxes were mine. Even the luxury SUV parked outside had been purchased using money Walter left me. But online AB was the servant. I walked downstairs slowly. Claire sat at the island counter sipping coffee while Ethan scrolled his phone. Neither looked guilty. "You posted that video?" I asked quietly. Claire shrugged. "It's a joke. You called me your maid. You're being dramatic." I looked at Ethan. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "Did you think it was funny?" Long silence, then he muttered, "Mom, it's social media. Relax, relax." I felt something inside me go cold, not angry, not emotional cold, like a door shutting forever. That afternoon, I went into Walter's old workshop behind the house. The smell of sawdust still lingered there. His jacket still hung on the wall. I sat alone for nearly an hour, staring at his toolbox. Then I opened the bottom drawer. Inside sat the leather folder Walter made me promise never to throw away. Property deeds, investment accounts, trust documents. And one particular paper Ethan had clearly forgotten existed. The house wasn't just mine, legally. It could never belong to Ethan unless I personally transferred ownership. Walter had been careful. People change when money gets involved, he used to say. I remember arguing with him years ago. Not our son. Walter looked at me sadly. "You hope that's true." I finally understood what he meant. Over the next week, I noticed things I'd ignored before. Claire searching luxury homes online. Ethan discussing renovations to increase property value. Whispers stopping when I entered rooms. Then one night, I heard them arguing downstairs after midnight. "She's taking too long," Claire snapped. "She's my mother. She's old, Ethan. We can't wait forever." I froze halfway down the staircase. Forever. They were waiting for me to die. My chest tightened so hard I thought I might collapse. Then Claire said something that changed everything. "If she puts the house in your name now, we can refinance and move to California by next year." Silence. Then Ethan quietly said, "I'll talk to her." I went back upstairs before they saw me, but I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling until sunrise while 42 years of motherhood unraveled in my mind. Every birthday cake, every fever, every soccer game, every sacrifice. Reduced to an obstacle standing between them and a bigger house, the next morning Ethan approached me carefully. "Mom, have you ever thought about estate planning?" I nearly laughed. Instead, I smiled softly. "I have." His eyes brightened immediately. That told me everything. "I think it would give everyone peace of mind," he said. "Everyone, not me, everyone." I nodded slowly. "You're right." Claire started treating me differently after that conversation, kinder sweeter. She made me tea, asked about my health, even hugged me once. That hug felt like snakes wrapping around my ribs. Meanwhile, I quietly hired an attorney, a very aggressive attorney. Richard Levinson had been Walter's friend for 30 years. When I showed him the video, his jaw tightened. "Do they know the trust terms?" "No." He leaned back slowly. "Helen, your husband protected you very carefully." "I know. You also realize you can remove them from the property immediately." I stared out the office window. "I want them to feel safe first." Richard studied me carefully. Then he smiled a little. "Walter used to say I looked harmless until someone pushed me too far." 3 weeks later, Claire announced they were throwing a huge anniversary party at the house. Nearly 50 guests, influencers, friends, business contacts. She wanted elegance, perfection, and naturally, she expected me to handle everything: cooking, cleaning, decorating. She treated me like hotel staff for 2 straight weeks. But this time, I smiled. I cooked beautiful meals, pressed tablecloths, polished silverware. Claire thought she was winning. Predators become careless when prey stops resisting. The night of the party arrived warm and golden. String lights glowed across the backyard. Music floated through open windows. Champagne glasses clinked everywhere. Claire wore a white satin dress that looked painfully expensive. Ethan kept introducing people to our family estate. Our. I watched him say it 4 times. Every time hurt less, because grief was finally turning into clarity. Around 9 o'clock, Claire tapped a spoon against her glass. "Speech," someone yelled. She grinned dramatically. "Oh my God, okay." Everyone gathered around, phones recording, lights shining. Claire wrapped an arm around Ethan. "I just want to thank everyone who helped us build this beautiful life." Applause. Then she looked directly at me. "And of course, special thanks to our live-in maid." Laughter exploded across the patio. Real laughter. Cruel laughter. Someone even clapped. My stomach twisted. But I kept smiling. Claire raised her champagne glass toward me. She's basically family staff at this point. More laughter. Then Ethan laughed too. Again. That same laugh. But this time, something unexpected happened. A woman near the back looked uncomfortable, then another. The laughter started dying awkwardly. People sensed something was wrong, because humiliation always sounds uglier in person than online. Claire didn't notice. She was drunk on attention. I stood slowly, quietly, and every conversation faded. I remember hearing the wind moving through the trees, hearing ice shift inside someone's glass, hearing my own heartbeat. Then I smiled gently. "You're right, Claire." She blinked. "I am useful." Nervous chuckles. I reached into my cardigan pocket and removed a small envelope. Ethan's face changed immediately. I handed the envelope to him. "What's this?" he asked. "Open it." Claire smirked. "Is this finally the house paperwork?" People laughed lightly again. Ethan opened the envelope. His smile disappeared. Color drained from his face so quickly it frightened me. Claire grabbed the papers. "What is?" Her voice stopped. Silence spread across the yard. Then Richard stepped forward from the back patio. Claire looked genuinely confused. "I'm attorney Richard Levinson," he said calmly. "Mrs. Helen Carter has formally revoked your residency rights effective immediately." Dead silence. Claire stared at him. "What?" Richard continued smoothly. "You have 72 hours to vacate the property." Ethan looked like he might throw up. "Mom." I finally looked directly at him. Really looked at him. "I heard your conversation." His face shattered. Claire immediately snapped into panic mode. "You can't do this in front of people." I almost laughed at the irony. "Why not?" I asked softly. "You embarrassed me in front of millions." Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The guests looked horrified. One woman quietly lowered her phone. Claire's voice sharpened instantly. "This house belongs to Ethan eventually anyway." "No," Richard said calmly. "Legally, it does not." Claire stared at him. "What are you talking about?" Richard opened another folder. "The property, investments, and estate are held in protected trust structures. Ethan Carter is not primary beneficiary." Ethan looked stunned. "What?" I swallowed hard because this part still hurt. Walter changed the trust before he died. My son stared at me like a stranger. "Why?" I felt tears sting my eyes. "Because he saw who you were becoming before I did." The silence after that nearly suffocated the entire yard. Claire suddenly exploded. "This is insane. After everything we've done for you." I looked around slowly, at the catered food I paid for, the lights I paid for, the house I cleaned while they mocked me, then back at her. "What exactly did you do for me?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. That's the thing about entitled people. The moment they're forced to list their kindnesses, they realize they have none. Ethan stepped toward me desperately. "Mom, please." "No." His eyes filled instantly, and for one terrible second, I saw the little boy he used to be, but then I remembered the video, the laughter, the waiting for me to die. "You stopped being my son the moment you let her turn me into entertainment." He broke completely then. Actually broke. "I'm sorry, but it was too late for apologies. Because apologies after consequences aren't remorse. They're survival instincts." Claire tried one final attack. "You're going to die alone." The words sliced through the night. Some guests gasped quietly, and suddenly AB felt peace. Real peace. Because cruel people always reveal themselves fully when they lose. I stepped closer to her. "No," I said gently. I was alone when you arrived." Her face tightened. "But now," I whispered, "I finally have my home back." Nobody applauded. This wasn't a movie. It was worse. It was real. Guests started leaving almost immediately. No goodbyes, no eye contact. Just uncomfortable silence and car doors shutting in the dark. Claire stormed inside screaming. Ethan lingered behind. "I really did love you," he said quietly. I nodded. "I know." "Then why?" "Because love without respect becomes poison," he cried then, hard, the kind of crying that comes from finally seeing yourself clearly. But some realizations arrive too late to save relationships. 3 days later, they moved out. Claire didn't speak to me once. Ethan tried twice. I couldn't do it. Not yet. After they left, the house felt quiet again. But not empty. There's a difference. One afternoon, Marianne came over with pie and found me repainting the kitchen. "You're smiling," she said. I looked around the room. Sunlight spilled across the counters. Walter's old music played softly through the house. For the first time in years, I could breathe inside my own home. I forgot what peace felt like, I admitted. Then something unexpected happened. The video resurfaced online. But this time, people knew the truth. One of the party guests had leaked the entire confrontation. Millions watched Claire mocking an elderly woman moments before being thrown out of the very house she thought she owned. The internet turned vicious overnight. Brand deals disappeared, followers vanished, comment sections exploded with rage. And for once, karma didn't move slowly, it moved like fire. Claire posted crying videos claiming she was misunderstood. Nobody believed her. Because humiliation hits differently when the victim finally speaks. Ethan called me 2 months later. I almost didn't answer. When I heard his voice, he sounded older, smaller. "I left her," he said quietly. I closed my eyes. Part of me had expected that. Okay, she wasn't who I thought she was. I nearly said, "You laughed too." But I didn't, because pain had already taught him that lesson. Instead, I asked, "Who are you now?" Long silence. Then he whispered, "I don't know." That was the first honest thing he'd said in years. We still speak sometimes, carefully, slowly, like people rebuilding a burned house with bare hands. Maybe one day forgiveness will fully arrive. Maybe it won't. Not every wound closes neatly, but I learned something important through all of this. People think betrayal destroys you instantly. It doesn't. It happens quietly. One small humiliation at a time, one dismissed feeling at a time, one laugh at your expense at a time, until one day you wake up inside your own life and realize you've become invisible. But invisibility can become power, because the moment people stop seeing your worth, they stop noticing your strength. And that's exactly when you take your life back. Last winter, snow covered the mountains again, just like the night Walter died. I sat alone on the porch, wrapped in his old blanket, holding a cup of tea while the world turned white around me, and for the first time in years, Abby didn't feel abandoned. I felt free. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. 3 words. "I understand now." I stared at the screen for a long time while tears filled my eyes. Not because it fixed everything, not because the pain disappeared, but because after all the cruelty, after all the humiliation, after being called a maid in my own home, my son had finally learned the cost of mistaking kindness for weakness, and somehow, that was enough.